Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Life and Sport Podcast. And we're joined by the owner, founder, and creator of a company that we've actually just partnered with. We are the official podcast, Life and Sport Podcast with and or for Rugby League Roo. And the owner, founder, etc., is Brook from Rugby League Roo. First of all, thank you for joining me today. And how's your morning going so far?
Good morning, CJ. Thanks for having us. Yeah, doing really well. Doing really well. The weather's been quite warm,
Yeah, a bit
so we've
too
been
warm.
out and about.
No, that's fair enough. Obviously, this is an episode to talk about Rugby League Roo, Coach AI, and all that sort of stuff. But what a lot of people may not know when they see, Rugby League Roo's socials and whatnot, that you're not just Rugby League Roo. You are an athlete yourself from previous years. You were a long distance runner. If you could talk to us about your journey of, long distance running and how that started, where it got you, and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I was a representative in long distance running. Ran all through high school.
Yep.
Was lucky enough to get a very good coach in Newcastle, where I was brought up, Jim Beastie,
Mm-hmm.
and I carried on and ran internationally. Travelled to Spain, to the US, Canada. So it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I was running about 230k a week.
Wow.
And now your
by
body
long distance running,
was it
by long distance, was it marathons or was it like 1,500 meters, sort of like on the track sort of thing?
Well, as a distance runner, you do run 1500s, etc., because it
Yep.
brings down your speed, your interval type work.
Yep.
But mainly half marathons, 5k.
Yep.
And then after I finished that, after I completed that, I moved into distance running training, where
Okay.
I was training Kenyans, Americans, UK. And at that particular time, I moved into rugby league. I've always had a love of rugby league.
What team did you follow growing up?
I followed the Dragons ever since I was born, mate. Really.
Fair enough.
So it's passed on to my son now and my family. So look, it's been sparingly between drinks, but once you get loyal,
That's it.
But I'm a fan of rugby league. I love rugby
Absolutely.
league.
Absolutely.
I love seeing all teams. I watch every game.
Yep.
And that's transposed now over to us training throughout the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how did Rugby
Emerging
League Roo?
nation.
Yeah, I was going to say, so how did Rugby League Roo come about from when you transitioned after going from long distance running training? Where's the overlap between long distance running training and rugby league training? Like, how did that come about?
It started probably about 1980.
Yep.
1982. I formed a great relationship with the Dragons. Into the 90s, early 90s, Mark Coyne, etc. The
Back when they were
Nathan
St.
Brown.
George Dragons before the merger.
St. George Dragons, when they played the Broncos, we made 2 grand finals, and
they made
did
multiple grand finals in the 90s, not just the 2 in a row.
Well, we won 11 in a row in the 50s and 60s, and we got bitten a bit in the 90s.
In the back end in the 90s, 92, 93, 96, and 99.
96. 99 was the killer.
Yeah.
Well, actually, way back to 85 when Canterbury got a 7-6.
Yeah, true.
That was a tough one. But so I did a lot of fitness training because of my distance work. I was doing a lot of fitness training with the Dragons. And then I got qualified as a coach.
Yep.
And started to, because I was training a lot of athletes in Kenya.
Yep.
I moved over to rugby league. There's a huge, because of their ability as athletes.
Yep.
Yeah. So I started off with Kenya-roo because it was like, can you travel to Australia? So that's how I first started.
Okay, yeah.
And because of the popular demand in Africa, in the UK, now
the
in
emerging
the States,
nations sort of stuff for rugby
the
league.
emerging nations, absolutely. So we expanded.
What about the Latino? Sorry to interrupt. Have you sort of gone over into the Latino sort of rugby league area yet, or not yet?
Yeah, absolutely. We are just talking to various countries over there. and in particularly Brazil.
Yep.
So we're working with the Brazilian Federation right now.
And
to
of
try
course,
and
by
uplift
extent, the Amazonas that recently played for the first time in the Women's Rugby League World Cup recently.
How sensational is that? And we have some players that we're dealing with at the moment and the Federation to try and uplift them for the next World Cup.
Yep.
So what Rugby League RU is all about, we look after schools program.
Yep.
We look after scholarships to get players here.
Yep.
We do all the clinics. We physically travel to the area.
Yep.
Lift up a grassroots competition and also look at the elite players' pathways to bring them. So it's a huge catalyst for each country, particularly the emerging countries.
Absolutely, because some of those emerging nations are on the cusp, or you could say the precipice of, all it takes is 1 or 2 good years and they're in the World Cup contention. Not necessarily winning the World Cup, but, getting to, qualify for the Rugby League World Cup, which is an amazing thing compared to, sometimes 2 or 3 years ago, as in, say in 2 or 3 years' time when the next World Cup comes up, and there may be another nation that we've not really heard of or seen, but that's because they've been, slowly working and slowly going through because of the grassroots foundations that Rugby League RU and the likes, other organizations such as yourselves have implemented into those nations to get them to that level, sort of thing. And so far, what has been your personal highlight of Rugby League RU?
Well, there are several, CJ, and thank you. And what you've just highlighted there is what we've been doing. Just recently, we've signed a major agreement with the Indian Federation.
Yep.
With Harinder, who operates as the lead for the Indian Federation. So we're building a complete competition, seniors and juniors.
Yep.
And in particular, the ladies are looking forward. Yeah, looking forward to the Indian ladies making the 2025 World Cup.
That would be awesome.
So it is awesome. We'll be traveling over to India in October.
Yep.
We're doing clinics in October. And we're also looking to get an international friendly playing either an Indigenous side from Australia or the ASEAN group from
the
Asia.
Philippines and all that sort of stuff. Yep.
Which we're very closely working with now.
Absolutely. That's awesome to hear. Like, I know we briefly discussed it the other week that you were in talks with, getting the Indian Rugby League Federation up and going and on board. And that's amazing to hear. And obviously you somewhat started Coach AI. I'm pretty sure you did. How did that come about as well? I know we spoke briefly the other day that you just didn't end up having the time to be able to do Coach AI. So you sort of, you passed it on to someone else. How did Coach AI start up, and what was the brainchild behind that? Was that to specialize, or what was that?
Okay, well, Coach AI is an independent group that we have an agreement with.
Mm-hmm.
So there's Kenny, Sam, our friends. They are actually independent. So what actually happened when I transferred from Kenya RU to Rugby League RU, I simply couldn't do all the training. There was too many countries, too many independents.
Yep.
So I formed an agreement with Coach AI.
So it's kind of like Jim's mowing in the sense of it's like Coach AI is like a franchise. Each person, there's a head honcho sort of person, but they also run independently at the same time.
Well, no, I didn't form Coach AI. They're separate to Rugby League Group.
Okay.
But what they have actually completed is they've got the world's first independent coaching platform.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So they do from under sixes right up to elites. They're currently just been in Dubbo and that district doing their own rugby league. But what I met with with Coach AI and said, look, I'm too busy. I need to be the CEO, need to discuss, get agreements, move forward, international with the emerging countries.
Yep.
I need you to train for me. So they do their own independent work, which they're really good at.
Yep.
Even training current NRL players now to that level. So they've been in Kenya for me.
Yep.
So I'll get back to Kenya in a moment.
Yeah, of course.
They're doing India. We have just settling on an agreement with the United States and the United States national women's team.
Yep.
And Canada. So I will get the dates and the specifics for the clinics. I will travel with Coach AI. I'll do the rugby league RU section, and they will train all the athletes for me.
Gotcha.
So they're basically training Kenya now. We've trained over 350,000 Kenyans.
Wow.
Their children were in the schools program. We coach now Caribou, Africa.
Yep.
And we train around 5,000 young athletes weekly.
Wow.
So they've got 3 sections. Dominic is the CEO over there, and we have an agreement with Caribou that we bring up grassroots. We've sent them equipment, clothing, apparel. As we have our own manufacturing, we have our own manufacturing plant in China.
Yep.
So we can afford to send with sponsors, with help, etc., to emerging nations that simply can't afford football or clothing. So we've done a lot in the background over the last 3 years to really uplift emerging countries.
That's amazing. And honestly, it would be great to see, you guys, I can't really think of the words right now, but it's great to see. You'd be able to see, you'd reap the rewards from, the seeds that you're sowing in the early stages. Seeing Brazil get to the World Cup, and you've been there helping them out for X amount of years, and then it'll be great to see when India and the other nations, make the World Cup. It's all literally watching all of those from the foundation, from where they began to where they get to, and it's all part of and because of you, Coach AI, and all those sort of people involved. And, without that, rugby league doesn't really exist in those nations for more or less.
Well, we're very, very fortunate. My wife, Sally, she does all the marketing. We've got a really, really good team. And I cast my mind back to when I was about 15 or 16, CJ. And when I was running, not all parents can afford everything. I mean, I never went without. I had wonderful parents. But Nike gave me a contract when I was 15. And I've never, ever forgot it. I've never forgotten it. So that inspired me to do well. So when we go out and we go to these countries and we visit these countries, the inspiration that you get yourself, we are inspired by the fact of seeing other people do well. And you're right, they may not get this opportunity, they might, but we're just a little cog in the wheel to
help them get to where they're going,
to train them. Like even the small things like Coach AI, we peeled it right back for these countries.
Right back to literally how to pass, how to catch, how to kick,
how to hold the ball, what's foot to step off. So when these athletes come through, they're trained correctly. And then you put their natural ability and they can run, they can step, they can leap. So, and we do a lot with the Indigenous within Australia. So it's not only within Australia, it's internationally. So we want to give every child that we touch an opportunity to move forward, combined with the elite players. The elite players still get coached by us. The current players in the NRL at the moment.
Do you do any other sports? I know obviously rugby league, RU, it's obviously in the name rugby league, but do you cater, or does Coach AI also maybe cater to other sports?
We're at this stage, no, we're purely rugby league. There's a massive pool, country rugby league. Getting out to see them consistently.
Which areas of country rugby league do you guys go to? Obviously, it's all country rugby league groups, I'm guessing. But which ones have you seen the benefits from? That have benefited from rugby league RU and Coach AI?
The Indigenous rugby league is an excellent point, because
the knockouts. You mean like Walgett? sort of one, or do you
We
mean just
attend there, but it's mainly our clinic, CJ,
Oh, okay.
going to actual, far-reaching locations. Like
Yep.
we've this year we'll touch Perth,
Yep.
we'll go to Tennant Creek, we will go to the top end in Queensland, New South Wales, even down to Tassie, South Australia, and the Territories.
Yep.
And there's a massive pool even around the Canberra area.
Yeah.
To look at. So Wagga, all the country areas. So if there's anyone out there that would like a visit, would like some one-on training, would like to look at the Coach AI platform, which is brilliant in itself. I understand that you'll get Kenny, the managing director, on at a later date, and he can talk to you specifically about Rugby League Roo and Coach AI.
Yep.
But that's what we're out. We're out to try and touch as many people as we can, and of course, we need sponsors and we need assistance to do that.
Absolutely.
Which we're that allows me now to go and source that, where Coach AI now can train under Rugby League Rule.
Yep.
And move forward, and I'm very happy to have that partnership with them.
Absolutely. And obviously we've spoken a lot about Rugby League Roo, so let's get talking a little bit about the NRL. The 2023 season is almost upon us. We're the better half of only about a month and a bit away from kickoff. What's your thoughts on the upcoming season? Also, second point of that is, what are your thoughts on the RLPA stuff going on? And thirdly, do you have a top 8 prediction?
Well, yes, I do have a thought. Look, I'm right behind the RLPA.
Absolutely, so am I.
I'm all for the players. Having said that, the NRL has to manage a monster.
Yeah, that's
very true. Extremely. It's like rugby league is tribal.
Yeah,
you very rarely get people that change teams.
The only time you'll get someone that change teams is you could be forgiven for changing teams if you followed the Knights those 3 years in a row of a spoon. I don't blame you if you jumped ship. I really don't. But that's about it.
I had to wait from 79,
yep,
which I attended, go through those 5 that we dipped out on.
Yep.
And with Wayne Bennett's entry into 2010 and a few massaging, and Benny Hornby and the boys, that I had to wait 27 years. That was carnage every year.
The real question is, in my opinion, well, not my opinion, but I've got a question for you. Just a quick side tangent, because we're talking grand finals for a quick second. So Souths, obviously, and St. George, and also the Wests Tigers. So Wests Tigers obviously are a merger. So are St. George Illawarra. And the Bunnies aren't, but they got reinstated, right? They've all won a grand final in the NRL era. In my opinion, their previous grand finals don't count because they're mergers. The Wests Tigers only count their grand finals as one because of the 2005. They don't count the Western Suburbs or the Balmain Tigers, right? The St. George Illawarra Dragons, they're all counting their ones in the 50s and 60s. They shouldn't, in my opinion, because it's not St. George Illawarra. It's the St. George Dragons grand finals. Absolutely. It's a Dragons grand finals, but it's not St. George Illawarra Dragons grand finals. I know a lot of fans in particular that are Dragons fans that still try and count or talk up the 10, the decade of dominance that they had as if it was to do with the current team. What are your thoughts on people who say that?
Well, I'll explain it to you like this, CJ. You can't buck history. You can't buck loyalty.
I agree with that.
So you cannot discount.
But it would be like the Wests Tigers counting all of the Balmain premierships as Wests Tigers premierships.
Well, you have a denote. You have through this area, they won that. Through the NRL, you won that. Don't forget, we used to have New South Wales Rugby League.
Yeah, and we had Super League, and we had Winfield Cup, and we had BRL.
That's right. So
that's true.
We emerged. And that's like robbing a player. Let's say, for argument's sake, Andrew McCullough, who was the ambassador for the Dragons with International Rugby League Rule.
Yep.
He has played over 300 games. Absolutely. If he had played in the era before 99, and he played 150 games.
Yep.
And then after that, post that, he played 150 for his 300.
Yep.
You can't discount that man has played.
No, you'd say as long as it's first grade, he played 300 first grade games.
Correct. But what you're saying is that nothing should be up to 99 counted.
Oh.
So it's the same. It's the same for a player. It's the same for New South Wales Rugby League. You cannot buck history. So what you need to do is, yes, endorse that and say, like the Manly Sea Eagles in North Sydney, they came back as Manly.
But the North Sydney Bears did not come back. Unfortunately, They went down to the NSWRL.
That's right.
In my opinion, they copped. Sorry, side tangent. They copped the massive raw end of the stick, raw end of the deal when it came to all of that. When it came to North Sydney, North Sydney Bears. Sorry, continue. Read the history.
Yes. So yes, I'm a traditionalist. I'm a loyalist. I love that the Dragons won 11 in a row.
Oh, absolutely, they
did. I know we suffered after that, and that was probably payback for winning 11 in a row. If you really want to look at it,
you could say it's somewhat maybe karma. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you could. It doesn't hurt the Dragon supporters, but rugby league now is a commitment of all those years from 1908 right up. So, as a loyalist, as a traditionalist, looking at rugby league, I believe that you have to take every era. You can't compare eras. You shouldn't compare eras.
Okay, that's absolutely true. One topic on that note, I saw a post the other day, and because as you know, everyone puts their all greatest of all time, right? As in the starting 13 greatest of all time, right? Have you noticed how many people only go from the late Winfield Cup era to now? You won't see anyone put Graham Langlands or Dally Messenger or any of those players in their greatest 13. You'll see players, like Gordon Tallis, Eric Groth, Senior, Steve Mortimer maybe and all them. But then you'll see obviously, Greg Inglis put in there, but you'll never see anyone go further back than maybe 75, players. But there are some greats back there. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because it did my nut in the other day.
I have a reason, CJ, why that would be.
Yeah.
Because if you're interviewing someone 50 and under, they will only recall that back end.
Yeah.
If you recall, if you say to the 35 to 40 to 70 age group, you will not get too many of the current players in.
Oh no, absolutely agree. So but you definitely won't.
It would be the age group, the demographic of the age group that you interview to get your answer. There's been some wonderful, wonderful players. I mean,
absolutely.
The best player I've personally seen is Jonathan Thurston, and there's several reasons for that. One was his fitness level. Two was his ability to compete on every play for a long period of time. His natural ability, his running a game, his kicking, and the love for the sport.
Yeah.
You would have to go a long way to see anyone else. The absolute desire. I mean, Ricky Stewart's got it in the current. You see Ricky, and people see Ricky as but the passion that he's
people
got.
People see Ricky as angry and all that. It's just his passion.
It's and if you haven't got that passion,
you're not going to last.
And that desire. And I think Canberra will have a really good season.
Well, they've got one of the easiest draws, so I don't see why they wouldn't have a good season.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry, we tangented a little bit. Thoughts on the upcoming season and the RLPA?
The RLPA, as I say, I'm right behind them. In particular, there's a couple of reasons. One is naturally they're for the players.
Yep.
I believe that there should be a great deal more communication with the NRL, with the board and the RLPA.
Yep.
Get them in the room, sit them down, nut it all out. This toing and froing is no good.
No, it's not.
Is no good for anyone. So I firmly believe as an executive type parameter, they should actually get in a room and just nut it out.
Yep.
Get the gloves off, put it all on the table, get some representatives from the players,
Yep.
The senior players, and throw a couple of the young players in too, because
Yeah.
they're now coming
They're the next
into their
generation of the
maturity.
NRL.
That's right. Yeah. So it'd be nice to hear from them, their thoughts.
Yeah.
So
Because the
if we
things
could
that are
do
implemented, this year and next year are going to be what's, benefiting the future generations of rugby
absolutely.
league.
So you get the senior players, and everyone talks freely. You just have a big brainstorming session and say, this is what we'd like to do. Get some former players in there as well, who are independent. Some of them are going through some bad injuries or bad mental states. You need to hear from them.
Yep.
You need doctors' opinions. You need physios. You need a lot of people in that room, all having a say, all having buy-in. And at the end of that period, I think we can come out with a beautiful model to move forward.
Absolutely.
But
Agreed.
I firmly believe that, and what I see, CJ, is putting things back into grassroots and to country rugby league.
Yes. Absolutely.
We absolutely need it.
It's vital.
Yes, and the women's game. I love the women's game.
I love
Don't
it too.
you? There's no wrestle. Like, get out there, they have a go.
They honestly, if I'm being honest, they run it straighter and harder than the men sometimes. It's amazing to watch.
They do, and their lines, that they're running and everything. The coaches that have had them, they need to be commended. The clubs, but they are in the same boat as the men.
Absolutely.
So I understand there must be a documented agreement between both parties as to what the plan is, injury plan. I mean, look,
even a pregnancy plan as well for the ladies.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. These ladies, they are women in league, and they produce
the next generation.
So we need to look after them. We absolutely need to look after them. And I speak to women all over the world. America, Brazil, Kenya. They are loving rugby league. They love the sport. They love the impact. They love the one-on-one.
Yep.
In rugby league, you just don't stand about.
Yeah, no, you don't.
You have
There's always
to get over
something
your
to
opposition.
Do. Yeah.
You have to get up. You look at your opposition, you go out, you line up. Okay, I got to take him or her. I got to get over the top of them, which benefits my team.
Yeah.
So they are in the same situation as the men. We just have to look after them, and we have a duty of care. We have an absolute duty of care to our men and women.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've just got one last topic for you, and it's what's next for Rugby League Roo? What's upcoming?
Upcoming is, as I've said, India. We go over there this year. We, with the Federation, hugely excited. We're getting 4 teams together in the men's and probably 20 or 30 grassroots teams. Kenya is going extremely well. So we're doing the grassroots there. I'm very excited about America.
Yep.
Addie, the women's coach, we're dealing with. Addie and Ben, so I'm really excited about America, and I'm really excited that we will be able to bring pathways. So imagine a Kenyan or an American or someone, excuse me, getting into the NRL.
Yeah, wow. That'd be amazing. Honestly, that's just sitting there having that thought. That'd be awesome to see. That'd be so awesome to see that. And yeah, that about wraps up the episode. But I will ask though, do you have a predicted top 8 for the NRL before we wrap up?
I do have a top 8, and
is it in particular order, or is it any 8? Or is it just 8 that you think will make the top 8?
I think I could probably give you an order.
Okay.
I firmly believe that Penrith will keep going.
Yeah.
Their junior segue is amazing.
Yeah.
And their ability to gel together from each grade. So each grade are doing the same thing.
Oh,
now,
yeah. And
we
they
do,
won every grade grand final last year.
yes. So you do reach the top, you do reach a pinnacle, and it's rotational. The NRL, you've probably got a window of 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
If you can nab as many grand finals or get there as many times as you can. And you'll look through history, like every team gets 3 or 4 years. They're thereabout. They win a minor premiership. They sneak. They get beat. They sneak one.
Yep.
Everything's got to go right. On the day, everything's got to go right through the year, injuries, etc. And they will get bled through representatives through because of the quality of their players. And also they'll have to mix to other sides. So I would say Penrith and the Roosters will have good years. I believe that Canterbury will have a good year. I believe that they'll be on the verge of the 8.
Yeah. Okay.
The one team, and it's I follow them, so I know them closely. And we've had a few hiccups, mate. I mean, we've had a couple of slaps in the face, and but I believe the nucleus and Ben Hunt, you can't go past him, mate. He's he's like wine, isn't he? So I think if they can get through their first 10,
yep,
reasonably well, I don't think they're going to be that touched over Origin.
Yep.
And they can make a bit of a move. I think they can finish 8th.
Okay.
Given their draw.
Yeah.
Given their draw. That's the only thing. And they get a lot of good games at home. They get their travelling out of the way quite quickly. So who haven't I mentioned? I have concerns about Manly.
Yeah.
I think they're a couple of years away. Who haven't I said? So I've got
South.
Penrith.
Where do you think South will be?
Oh, I think South will do well. Cody Walker and that, he's a little gem, isn't he, in Latrell? Happy to see them in. They'll do really well. So maybe
the
fourth
Sharks.
or fifth.
The Sharks and Cowboys
the Sharks,
as well.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of pressure on the Sharks.
Yeah.
They had
perform
a really
as well
good
as they
year.
did last year. Yeah.
Yes. And I think they did overs.
Yep.
But they did incredibly well to get there.
Fuck yeah.
Let's see how they go in the first 4 or 5 rounds. They need to do well because they're going to have some players out in Origin.
Yeah.
So I think they'll be in there, but I think they'll drop a bit. I think,
okay.
I think they might be. Our Broncos, they're an enigma. They're a massive club.
They are a bit, and they're a bit enigmatic lately, aren't they?
It's like your first day.
They made the top 4 and then finished outside the top 8.
They've got the quality. I mean, Haas is like, what team wouldn't want Haas?
And what team would want to run at Haas?
Yeah, I mean, like, so
and you got the general, as in Adam Reynolds, running the show a little, when he's not injured, and you've got a gun of a centre when he's fit, being Katoni Staggs, and you've got bloody, Paddy Carrigan, who once he come back from the ACL injury, absolute gun, added an offload to his game.
He's just a footballer,
right?
Carrigan, isn't he?
But it's also at the same time, which Broncos is going to show up is what you got to watch out for.
Well,
it's either they win or they get flogged.
Yeah, well, Kevy's got to sprinkle a bit of dust there.
Yeah.
The big thing about the Broncos that their fans would want to hear is consistency.
It's lacking.
When you go to the stadium and everything, it's a great stadium. Suncorp is awesome to watch football. But when you go there to watch a game of rugby league and everything, they're going to be up. Yeah. It's their travelling. So if they can win every second game away.
Well, I actually checked the other day. The Broncos only play 2 away games in the first 10 rounds.
Wow. Well, that's a big advantage.
Round 1, it will away against the Dolphins at Suncorp. But
yes.
Round 1 is against the Panthers. That's down in Penrith. And then round 10 is against Manly at Suncorp. And then round 4 is at Suncorp, but against the Dolphins, which is an away game as well, but it's all technically away games. And I think we play the Sharks is the other actual away game down in Sydney in the first 10 rounds. So that's a pretty good advantage.
I'm excited about the Dolphins game.
So am I.
That would be, that would be a packed stadium. Well, everyone's doing.
I'm going to be going to the first Dolphins game of the year to watch the Arthur Beetson Trophy match, which is Dolphins against Roosters at Suncorp. It's going to be amazing. I knew it would either be, as in before they announced the draw, I knew it was either going to be Broncos Dolphins or Dolphins Roosters, as in for the first Dolphins game. And I think it's very fitting that they do it for the Arthur Beetson Trophy because he plays for both clubs. It's amazing to see. But also, that brings up a good topic. How do you think the Dolphins are going to go? A lot of people are tipping them for the spoon. I'm not tipping them for the spoon. I think they're going to finish mid of the bottom 9, so probably between 10th and 13th.
Okay, well, I believe the Dolphins have got a couple of issues there. One is some people are saying Wayne Bennett is, a little bit older. It's just once you remove someone and they're not in the casting eye, you kind of forget about how brilliant they are.
Yeah.
And how he's a man manager, Wayne Bennett. He gets his team up. He will have them okay. There's a couple of areas though. I would like to see a stronger halves pairing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Not a stronger and the depth.
Yep.
So if they get a few injuries or anything like that, pulling players up, and Queensland's an excellent nursery.
And they've also got the Redcliffe Dolphins Q Cup team as one of their feeders.
And they go hard.
They do.
So that's the two issues I see with the Dolphins. Trying to match teams like the Storm and Bellyache's still there for, I think it's another year.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll be knocking on the door again.
Just before you continue with that, my thoughts on that is the age-old, we were talking about coaches, maybe Wayne Bennett's too old, etc. You need to remember, he's won 7 grand finals. He's coached 3 clubs to grand finals. Granted, the Souths didn't win, but he coached them to a grand final. He's, in my opinion, the modern Jack Gibson. Now, the reason I say that, Trent Robinson isn't in the bloody conversation. Neither is Craig Bellamy, in my opinion. They're great coaches, but they're not Wayne Bennett. When they can do it at another club, then I'll absolutely be saying, yep, they're in contention for the conversation. Wayne Bennett has done it at the Broncos. He's done it at the Dragons. He's taken Souths to a grand final. Granted, they didn't win, but at least got them there. He's gone back to the Broncos and got them to a grand final that year when he got back. You can't tell me he's not a genius of a coach. And people who say, oh, Robbo, he's won 3 with the Roosters, 2 were back-to-back, 1 was in the first year he was a coach. Sure. Craig Bellamy coached heaps of times. Craig Bellamy was the understudy and the apprentice to Wayne Bennett. So, of course, he's going to be a good coach. You cannot tell me that they are better or as good as Wayne Bennett until they've won a grand final with another club in the NRL. I'm sorry, mate, that's just my opinion. What are your thoughts on that statement, at least?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look, the longevity has been there, his success, different clubs, but not only that, he went to England when they were in travel.
Yep.
And he brought them up.
He coached New Zealand to a Rugby League World Cup win against Australia.
New Zealand. So when you look at every parameter.
State of Origin 2020, the worst team of 40 years.
Bringing Langer back. I mean,
that was genius.
These type and when he sprinkled that dust on the Dragons, those boys had all come up together. They needed a man manager.
Yep.
So he did it. I mean, 27 years, 5 or 6 grand finals, dipped out.
Yep.
He had them.
He was even a coach.
World champions.
He was a coach in the 87 grand final for the Raiders. They lost, but coached them to the grand final.
Coached. And really, the players want to play for him.
That's it. Otherwise you wouldn't have seen Milford go back there. You wouldn't have seen other players who have been coached by him. Most of them, he's coached them previously, whether it's at Souths or at the Broncos or at the Knights or at the Dragons.
To his own detriment, with the media, he protects his players.
Yeah.
I love his little candid ways when he speaks.
Oh, I love it. I love that he
It
believes that cameras
excites.
don't belong in the sheds. I agree with that.
Yes, and that's right. So, look, I've got a wealth of time for Wayne Bennett. I've had conversations with Wayne. So look, he's a man's man.
Yep.
He looks after his team, and one day come back to the Dragons.
Win us another comp.
It was another comp.
I think he'll keep going until he dies, if I'm being honest. Like his longevity, it's as you said, you've had a chance to speak to him quite a few times. I had the honor of meeting him and going to a function not last year, the year before. It was after COVID, but it was in that gap between the COVID spikes where
Yes.
stuff became back to normal. Well, there was a little function going on. Mark Nichols was there, Ray Price was there, Wayne Bennett, and Michael Butner was also there. It was done by Wiseberry. They're a real estate agency company, and it was run at Hornsby RSL. It was great to see. It was basically they were talking about all their sort of like perseverance and all that sort of stuff. Each had a speaking time, and listening to Wayne, it was captivating. I honestly signed up. It was a free event. I signed up to go for Wayne, not just because I'm a Broncos fan or because I'm a Queensland fan. I wanted to see Wayne without the cameras. I wanted to see Wayne not in the media. I wanted to see and hear exactly how Wayne is. Granted, he's talking to an audience, but it's Wayne. It's not what the Rabbitohs media wants you to see. It's not what he's after a post game press conference. It's as raw as it could be, and it was amazing. I took so many notes. It was amazing to see. So I absolutely agree with what you're saying. He is a man's man. He gets it done and he protects his players, but because it's the right thing to do, not because he feels the need to.
Yeah, and look, he teaches life lessons. He gets stupidity out of young players. He focuses.
And he remembers so much. One person I've interviewed a lot that have been coached by Wayne. One person in particular, I think it was Mark Nichols or someone like that. It was Mark Nichols actually. He come to training one day at Souths, and he was late only by a few minutes just because literally the traffic was bad and he had to pick up something for his wife who was very heavily pregnant at the time. And anyway, 3 or 4 weeks later, he'd forgotten about it. Wayne asked, "Oh, mate, glad to see you're not late because of insert, the thing that happened." And he's just like, he has an incredible memory, and he brings that up, and it's individual to every player as well.
I mean, when you look at society and people that work in society and everything, like, why do you think everyone likes doctors? Because they assist you, they help you, but they ask questions of you.
Yeah.
You go to the doctor, you feel bad. No matter what your ailment, you come out there and you feel okay.
You feel a little bit better,
you feel better because they ask questions of you. And Wayne's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, he will sit down. He will notice that you're not in tune in training. He will notice that you're starting to sway away. Yep. And then he'll go and talk to you or get you out in the field. Mate, what's up? Can I help? Are you okay?
Yeah.
And that's part of his man management. Then you add the skills and the ability for him to motivate individuals for the overall benefit of the team. Now, you've got a super coach.
Oh, absolutely. And then obviously that, and you also add in all the successes that he's had from that method of coaching. It's a no-brainer. There are some coaches that are methodical, and there are some coaches that are man managers, and there are some that are methodical man managers, and Wayne is the best of both. He's definitely methodical, but he's definitely a man manager first, and it's good to see. And it's not a big thing these days anymore. Like, Wayne is probably the last of them to an extent. Maybe Craig Bellamy, and maybe Ricky are probably the last 3 man managers first over being methodical. Let's do it this, which are definitely, you can see a lot of that in Trent Robinson.
I mean, let's not forget that Wayne and Mal Meninga, they were both police officers. They saw things. They see how people act. They see how people want you to think they're going to act, but they see through that. So that sort of grounding also assists him. So when he came into being a coach, and he was at a good club, Canberra on the rise. They had excellent players, and he could then see, okay, this is how I've got to manage them. And he not only manages a team, he manages the individual. He manages their family life. He gets involved with their family. And that's a lot to take on.
Yeah.
So he is knowing them the way he does is like, now I protect them in the media.
Yep.
So sometimes I've seen Wayne really fall on his sword.
Oh yeah.
For
There's
the
been
players.
times. Oh yeah. There's been times where a player
what
has
he
done.
goes and says to them in the sheds is completely different.
Oh, it is
what he says,
absolutely 100% different.
And you can't bottle that.
No.
You can't teach that. It's got to be within you.
Yep. Absolutely. So where do you think the Broncos will finish up in 2023? Because I believe they can finish anywhere between 4th and 10th. They're that enigmatic, as you were saying.
Well, there's a lot of teams in that boat, isn't there?
Yeah.
So you've got to be consistent. You've got to be consistent.
Yeah.
The good thing about the Broncos is they've got the depth.
And they've got the depth, and they've got that early run of home games in the start of the season.
So
and sure, it's a Dolphins game, and sure, it's a Manly home game, but they're at Suncorp, so they're home games, in my opinion. You can't tell me it's not.
Look, I would expect that they would have a decent run. So will the Dragons.
Yeah.
It's that middle part of the year when
Origin.
And more to the point with young players, how they respond after Origin.
Yeah.
It's actually a huge psychological, twist to come back to play. And look, the ethos is play well at Origin, come back, bring that structure and that performance back to your club.
Yep.
But it's that mental ability, the niggling injuries that time of year. And some of those injuries transform right throughout the year.
Yeah.
So clubs can dip. So it's how you manage them, and more to the point, how you manage your interchange.
Yeah.
Throughout the year to give your good players a rest. So when you're on top, make sure you're on top. Finish them off. Probably pull them off for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So how you manage your interchange team really has to be in sync with your players. So they've got to spend a lot of time with the players, know how they feel.
Yeah.
So
absolutely agree.
I think they can make the 8.
Yep.
I think that there's 4 or 5 strong teams in the comp.
Yep.
But everyone can be defeated on their day, and you have to have that mentality. You've got to start the year like, we're going to win the premiership.
Yeah. Well, I was actually, speaking of that, just this morning I was looking through Instagram, and the Titans posted, as in the Titans official Instagram account, posted a thing about all of their players and what their goals are for the season. A few of them were make my NRL debut, but the rest were premiership, win a grand final, make finals, premiership, make finals. And granted, if you can definitely not be mad at someone for laughing in their face because it's the Titans and given their run of form the last few years, but you've got to have that belief, as you said at the start of the season, you've got to believe you can beat anyone on their day and on the day throughout the season. And if you go in with that mindset, you'll be amazed at what you can produce by the end of the season.
Well, if I went into every country that I go into and I said, I can't make a difference here, my team can't make a difference, I can't get the collaboration that I need to get from the federation, from the governments, from the players, I shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So it's life, isn't it? You should be going to your work saying, I can make a difference. Teachers making a difference with the students. Look at Andrew McCulloch now. Okay, injuries have forced him to retire.
But
now look
over 300 games though.
That's over amazing. 300 games representing Queensland, etc. A gun bloke. He's just a chainsaw, they call him. He's just knock everything down. But now straight away he's into assisting with the Broncos, going out to the schools and that. He's still doing stuff with the Dragons. So he's got a balanced future. So the players going from the NRL and those first couple of years after, that is a struggle.
And that comes back to the RLPA and the NRL.
Yes, that is a struggle, my friend. if you were in top notch any sport and you retire,
not just rugby league, but any sport.
No, any sport, and then that transition period into
Regular civilian type life, yeah.
Because when you're a player, you get told what to do. I go here, you turn up here, you get on that bus, you train.
Your life is literally structured down to the minute.
Structured. So if you're a decade player, you get up to around the 300 games. Well, every year, you get your off season. Okay, I'll go away with my wife. I'll spend more time with the kids.
But that's still planned. Yeah, that's still a planned out.
Because between that period and that period, you've got to be back.
Yep.
And if you've got an injury, you've got to manage it during the off season. You're in the gym or you're swimming or you're doing that with a physio. So that period after, what I see in the game is protect the women.
Mm-hmm.
Moving forward, I see the grassroots as a problem. I see the transition from being a superstar going into, and they're all superstars. Let's face it. You cross that white line, you go out. It's a very competitive sport, so there's nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
So I see that, but the biggest problem I see in rugby league at the moment, the biggest problem, apart from what the NRL and the RPL are fighting for, is the transition from a 6-year-old to a 10-year-old, and that period of teaching them how to tackle correctly.
Yep.
That's my biggest concern in rugby league. I mean, we can teach them to catch pass, do all this, how to swerve, how to beat an opposing player. Correct tackling technique should be mandatory.
Yeah.
So each club, the NRL or whatever, that's what we do. We go into clubs, we teach them how to tackle correctly. We don't leave that club until they can tackle correctly.
Yep.
So I think that's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agreed. And I think on that note, that about wraps up the episode and the chat. So I want to, first of all, again, thank you for coming on the podcast. This episode will air on Wednesday. For anyone that's listening, it's Monday currently. So also anyone who is interested in Coach AI and is wanting training, whether it's one-on-one, groups, children, adults, all ages, go to the Coach AI website or also the Rugby League RU website. The links will be in the description section of this episode, no matter where you're listening, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcast, Facebook, YouTube, etc. And also while you're there, be sure to give us a review or a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Be honest if you liked it or if you didn't like it. That way I can make sure I make better content if you don't like it. Yeah, thank you very much for joining me, Brook. And I look forward to our partnership throughout the next 12 months.
Thank you very much, EJ.